Human soldier needed shelter. The alien woman said, "Stay close, it's warmer inside." The storm on Archivale was merciless. Wind screamed across the glacial plains, dragging icy shards that cut through reinforced armor and seared the skin beneath. Captain Marcus Hale pressed forward through the blizzard, his breath clouding inside the cracked seal of his helmet. He had endured combat on desert worlds, jungles thick with acid mist, and orbital sieges that burned entire continents. But nothing compared to this cold. His suit's thermal regulators were failing, and the emergency beacon on his downed transport had been swallowed by the storm hours ago. Somewhere behind him trudged his only companion, a white military canine engineered from Terran breeds to withstand sub-zero conditions. "Keep close, Ghost," Marcus muttered through the howling wind. The dog's silver eyes glinted faintly in the stormlight as it pushed forward, silent, loyal, its thick fur rimed with frost. They were supposed to be en route to afford a reconnaissance outpost. A sudden electrical surge had torn through the dropship's systems, frying the navigation array and sending them spiraling out of the upper atmosphere. Now, the soldier and his dog were stranded on an uncharted world of endless ice, far beyond the reach of rescue. Through the shifting white haze, Marcus caught sight of a faint glow, a shape, angular yet smooth, breaking the monotony of snow. His heart kicked. Shelter, or something pretending to be one. He adjusted his rifle, set Ghost into guard stance, and trudged toward the light. The shape solidified into a structure, a small station half buried in ice, its outer shell curved and luminous, pulsing with a rhythm too deliberate to be natural. As he neared, a blue light swept across him, scanning his armor. "Unregistered life form detected," said a soft melodic voice from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Human, male." Marcus hesitated. His hand hovered near his weapon but didn't draw. "If you understand me," he called, "I'm not here to fight. Just need shelter until extraction." A pause, then the voice again, now closer, warmer. "Stay close, it's warmer inside." The door slid open, revealing a figure framed in light. She was tall, statuesque, and unmistakably alien. Her skin shimmered an electric blue, smooth and faintly luminous beneath the glow. Silver white hair spilled down her shoulders, catching the light like spun frost. She wore a sleeveless jacket that stopped just above her midriff, dark utility shorts, and boots that gleamed with frost. Entirely inadequate for the cold outside, yet she didn't shiver. Her eyes were bright and intelligent, their silver irises reflecting the stormlight as she studied him. "Get in," she said simply, "before the planet decides it wants you dead." Marcus didn't need convincing. He stepped inside, Ghost close behind. Heat wrapped around him immediately, too warm, almost intoxicating after the brutal cold. The chamber sealed itself behind him with a hum, muting the world's fury. Inside, the place was compact, living quarters and lab combined, all smooth walls and softly humming technology. He pulled off his helmet, gasping as warm air hit his face. "You just saved our lives," he said, voice rough. "Thank you." The alien tilted her head slightly. "You may call me Lyra," she said, "and you're welcome." Though gratitude may be premature, Marcus frowned. "Meaning?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she crouched gracefully to examine Ghost, who wagged his tail cautiously. Her slender hand brushed the dog's fur, and her expression softened. "Companion animal," she murmured. "Genetically modified. Loyal, perceptive. Good design." Marcus arched an eyebrow. "You sound like you're dissecting him." "Observation," she corrected lightly, standing again. "Humans are a fascinating species. You create life not only for survival, but for companionship. And yet we still manage to crash ships on frozen hells," Marcus muttered. Lyra's lips curved slightly, a smile, small but genuine. "Remove your outer layer," she said. "There are thermal wraps near the reactor console." He hesitated, but the warmth was beginning to make him dizzy. He shed his armor piece by piece, setting it aside. Lyra's gaze followed the motion, clinical, curious, but not without something else. "You're a soldier," she said, her tone making it sound like an equation being solved. "Earth Federation." "Formerly," Marcus replied. "Now I'm just a man trying not to freeze to death." "You're fortunate then," Lyra said. You made it to the one place on this planet capable of sustaining life. And that place happens to belong to you, he said. You live here alone? She nodded. Research Station Theta 9. I monitor the decay patterns of Arca Vale's magnetic fields. Marcus frowned. That's awfully specific. It's the polite version, she said, moving toward a control console. The impolite version is that I'm not just studying the storms, I'm creating them. Marcus froze. You caused my crash. Lyra didn't deny it. I needed a human, she said simply. He stared at her, disbelieving. You crashed my transport because you needed company? Not company, she said softly, turning toward him. Her bright blue skin seemed to glow in the ambient light, her expression unreadable. Something your species has that mine does not. Biological adaptability, resilience. Your DNA is unique. Marcus exhaled slowly. So this was a setup. Not entirely, she said. Your distress beacon will still transmit, but the storm ensures no one can reach you for several rotations. She stepped closer, her eyes luminous. Long enough for me to complete what I began. Ghost growled softly, moving between them. Lyra looked down at him, her gaze gentle. He's protective, she said. Good. You'll need that instinct soon enough. You're going to explain, Marcus said, his voice calm but edged. All of it. Yes, she agreed, but not while you're freezing. Sit. Drink. She poured 2 cups of something steaming from a strange metallic cylinder. The scent was sharp but pleasant, like mint and copper. Marcus took the cup warily, tasted it, and felt warmth flood through him instantly. What is this? Stabilized thermic infusion, she said. It will raise your core temperature and repair microcellular frost damage. He glanced down at the glowing blue liquid, then back at her. You don't just study storms, do you? No, she admitted, seating herself across from him. My people are dying, Captain Hale. We are called the Valari. Our genetic structure is collapsing, generation by generation. Our ancestors tampered too much with synthetic evolution, and now our DNA frays like old thread. We've tried everything, mechanical repair, splicing, artificial intelligence integration. Nothing restores the lost stability, but humans, her eyes met his, humans endure. You survive the impossible. You adapt to environments no other species would attempt to colonize. I believe that secret lies in your biology. Marcus leaned back, studying her. So what? You plan to take samples and mix them in a test tube? Her gaze didn't waver. Not exactly. Then what? She hesitated, then said, the process requires a direct bioenergetic connection. A union of physical and cellular exchange, Marcus blinked. You're saying this ritual involves… Yes, Lyra said simply, unashamed. My people believe that the act of shared energy through physical union strengthens compatibility. It is both biological and symbolic. Marcus let out a slow breath, setting his cup aside. You do realize how this sounds to a human soldier who just crash-landed on your ice planet. Desperate, she said. And perhaps it is. But desperate acts have kept your species alive for millennia. Her tone was calm, but the faint tremor in her voice betrayed more emotion than she intended. I didn't want to harm you, Marcus, but you were the only signal within range that carried a compatible biosignature. He studied her for a long moment. And what happens if your ritual doesn't work? Then I will have failed my people, she said quietly, and perhaps doomed what remains of us. Something in her voice, resignation mixed with fragile hope, softened him. You could have asked, he said. Would you have believed me? He considered that, then shook his head. Probably not. She gave a faint smile, one that almost seemed human. Then perhaps fate intervened in the only way it knew how. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the station's reactors and the soft ticking of ice melting from his armor. Outside, the blizzard roared like a living thing. Inside, warmth and something stranger settled in its place. Lyra stood, retrieving a small device from her workstation, a silver orb that emitted a soft blue pulse. This will record the process, she said, but only if you agree. Marcus studied her carefully. The soldier in him screamed caution. But the human in him saw something else, a being on the edge of extinction, standing before him with quiet dignity and no weapon in her hand. "All right," he said finally. "Tell me what I need to do." Lyra exhaled, something like relief flickering through her expression. "Follow me." The next chamber was dimly lit, suffused with the same pale blue glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. She touched a console and the temperature rose several degrees, the air turning almost tropical. Marcus's skin prickled as warmth seeped into him. Lyra turned to face him, her silver-white hair catching the light like liquid metal. "Are you afraid?" she asked softly. "Should I be?" "No," she said, stepping closer. "Human physiology is remarkably durable." "Comforting," he murmured dryly. Her lips curved slightly, amused. "You've been through worse." "That's true," he said, "just not this particular kind of mission." Her expression softened. "Then think of it as diplomacy." Marcus chuckled once under his breath. "You're not making it easier." "It isn't meant to be easy," she said. "Survival never is." The distance between them closed. Her hand brushed against his arm, warm, almost hot, and for a moment he forgot the cold, the mission, the Federation. All he saw was the strange, luminous woman who had pulled him from the brink of death and who now looked at him as if the fate of an entire race rested in his choice. "Stay close," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the reactor. "It's warmer inside." The air shimmered faintly as the chamber's energy field stabilized around them, casting a faint halo on the metal floor. Marcus felt his heart beating slower, steadier, the soldier's instinct to assess, to calculate, trying to keep pace with the uncharted. Lyra moved with the same grace as before, but now there was a certain weight to her presence. Her blue skin seemed to emit its own heat, a faint radiant warmth that seeped into the air around her. She gestured toward the center of the chamber where an oval platform pulsed with soft light. "Stand there," she said. "The surface will calibrate to your body temperature." Marcus stepped onto it, boots echoing against the polished surface. A pulse of light scanned up his frame. "How does this work?" he asked, his voice rough but controlled. "If you're looking for blood or tissue samples, you had taken to Aussie already, Vang." Lyra approached, stopping just close enough that he could see faint motes of light moving beneath her skin, as if tiny constellations drifted through her veins. "You misunderstand," she said quietly. "The energy field must harmonize both our biosignatures before the exchange begins. That requires proximity. Sustained proximity." Marcus managed a dry smile. "You mean we have to stand really close together?" "Closer," she murmured. The faint hum of machinery intensified as she stepped into the light beside him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The platform beneath their feet pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats. Lyra's eyes lifted to meet his. "Your world teaches soldiers to detach from feeling," she said, her voice low, "to turn instinct into discipline. But here, that instinct is what will save us both. The connection is emotional as much as biological." He wanted to respond, but her words lingered, stirring something deeper than he cared to admit. Her hand brushed his chest, resting over the steady thud of his heart. "You can feel it, can't you?" she whispered. The resonance beginning. He could. A faint vibration, like static against his skin, humming through his bones. "Feels like standing next to a generator," he said. "That's how it starts," she said, her tone laced with quiet awe. "The human body carries electrical currents that respond to emotional stimulus. Fear, desire, trust, all produce measurable frequencies. That's what the Velari lost generations ago. The ability to feel power as energy." She raised her other hand and placed it gently at the side of his neck. A subtle glow sparked where her fingers met his skin. "You're conducting heat faster than expected." "The bond's taking root already," Marcus swallowed hard. "And if it doesn't stabilize?" "It will," she said, but her gaze flickered with uncertainty. "You've adapted to this planet's cold better than any subject I've ever modeled. You're compatible." Her voice softened on the last word. The glow intensified between them, the light shifting from blue to white. He felt his muscles tense involuntarily, not from pain, but from an overwhelming sensation of awareness. Every nerve felt alive, as though the air itself had weight. "Lyra," he said, "what happens if something goes wrong?" Then you'll feel what my people have felt for centuries, she said softly. The unraveling. The tremor in her voice broke through the scientific calm. Marcus reached out instinctively, steadying her. Hey, look at me. She lifted her gaze. Her silver eyes reflected him like twin mirrors. It's going to work, he said, and though he didn't know why, he meant it. Lyra's breathing steadied. You sound certain. That's what soldiers do, he replied. We pretend to be sure until it becomes true. A faint smile touched her lips, then pretend harder. The glow spread outward, surrounding them in a cocoon of pulsing light. Marcus felt his pulse syncing with hers, his heartbeat slowing to match the rhythm he felt through her hand. The room fell silent except for the steady hum of the reactor and their synchronized breathing. The warmth that enveloped him deepened until the cold of Arca Vale seemed like a distant memory. For a moment, he almost forgot the reason he was here. The storm, the crash, the impossible ritual. He could feel her energy weaving into his, the strange hum of her presence not unlike the vibrations before a jump through hyperspace. A surge of images flickered in his mind, memories that weren't his. Blue oceans under twin suns, crystalline spires reaching into lavender skies, laughter in a language he didn't know. He gasped. What is that? Echoes, Lyra whispered. Shared memory transfer. It means the ritual is succeeding. You're seeing mine too? Yes, her voice trembled. War, flame, metal skies, and loneliness. So much loneliness, Marcus flinched, the last word landing harder than he expected. The images of battlefields and empty barracks flickered and vanished. The light dimmed to a steady glow. Lyra swayed slightly, and he caught her before she could fall. It's done, she murmured, her voice distant. The exchange is complete. You don't look great, he said. I feel too much, she whispered. Your emotions, they don't stop. They never stop. Welcome to humanity, Marcus said dryly, guiding her to the nearest console. She steadied herself and looked up at him, and he saw the difference already. Her silver eyes now shimmered with faint rings of pale gray, like storm clouds drifting across the surface. You've changed, he said. We both have, she replied, her voice calm again, but softer. Your cells have begun adapting to my environmental traits. Your core temperature regulation is shifting. You'll withstand the cold now without assistance. He frowned. You're saying we're linked? Yes, she said. Our biostructures are entangled. Separation would cause instability in both. The bond is permanent. The soldier in him registered the implications immediately. So we're tethered. In essence, Lyra said, glancing toward the storm-scarred window, until death or distance break the resonance, though the latter may not even work. He exhaled slowly, processing the weight of it. You could have warned me. Would you have agreed? She asked quietly. He said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. The hum of the reactor filled the space between them. Ghost, ever watchful, padded closer and nudged Marcus's hand with his nose. The touch grounded him. So, Marcus said finally, now that your ritual worked, what happens next? Lyra's expression darkened. Now comes the part I couldn't tell you before. She moved to a nearby console, activating a holographic display. A series of images flickered. Winged shadows moving across snow, clawed limbs, black carapaces reflecting moonlight. The predators, she said. We call them the Korth. They evolved alongside us. Once they hunted our livestock. Then when the plagues came and our species weakened, they began hunting us. The images showed bodies half buried in snow, blue-skinned figures torn apart. Marcus's jaw tightened. And the Alliance? The Alliance quarantined this sector, she said bitterly. They deemed the Korth a contained ecological hazard. My people were labeled an observation class. Her voice faltered. They let us die. Marcus studied the footage. The creatures moved with coordinated precision, their glowing eyes scanning the night. How many are out there? Hundreds, thousands, maybe? She looked up at him, the light casting sharp angles across her blue skin. The storms keep them at bay for now, but the magnetic disruption field I created won't hold forever. When it fails, they will come. They always come. He felt the old soldier's instincts ignite, the quiet shift in his mind from shock to strategy. So that's why you needed me. You weren't just saving your species. You were recruiting an army of one. I needed someone who could fight, she said, her voice steady again. Someone whose body could survive what mine cannot. He glanced at her. And now you've got both. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, unreadable. You don't have to help. Yes, I do, he said. You crashed my ship. You pulled me into this. I might as well make sure we both live through it. For the first time, she smiled without reservation. Then perhaps fate brought you here for a reason. Fate doesn't crash transports, he said, checking the charge on his rifle. But I've been in worse situations with less company. Ghost barked once, as if in agreement. Lyra's smile deepened slightly. Then we prepare. Marcus nodded. The warmth in the room began to fade as he moved toward the airlock to check the seal integrity. Outside, the storm still raged, a living curtain of white and wind. Yet through the roaring silence, he thought he heard something else, a low, distant howl that wasn't the wind. He turned to Lyra, but she had already heard it too. Her expression turned grim. They're closer than I thought, she said. Then we don't have much time. Marcus looked down at Ghost, whose fur bristled as he stared at the door. Guess we're staying close after all, he said quietly. Lyra's luminous eyes met his, closer than you can imagine. The noise came again, a deep resonance that made the walls tremble like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Marcus steadied himself against the cold metal as the vibrations passed through the floor. Ghost growled, low and steady, his fur bristling as he fixed his eyes on the door. Lyra was already at the console, her fingers darting across glowing symbols that rearranged like liquid glass. The external monitors flickered to life, revealing the white blur of the storm outside. For a moment, nothing was visible. Then a shape moved through the haze, a towering silhouette crawling low to the ground, limbs bending in ways no natural creature should. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. That's one of them, Lyra said, voice flat. A Korth scout. They travel in packs. The creature drew closer to the perimeter field, and for a heartbeat its outline was clear. Black chitin armor glinting with frost, spines along its back, eyes glowing a dull crimson as it scanned the landscape. Marcus studied it with the calm precision of someone who'd faced monsters before, human and otherwise. How strong are their hides, he asked. Impervious to standard plasma rounds, Lyra said. Their biology evolved around consuming radiation. Energy-based weapons feed them great, Marcus muttered. So what hurts them? She hesitated. Temperature disruption. Rapid alternation between heat and cold destabilizes their carapace. But to generate that much fluctuation requires... She trailed off. Something stupid and dangerous, he finished. Her eyes flicked toward him. Precisely. Marcus glanced around the small station, taking inventory. Then it's a good thing I've made a career out of stupid and dangerous. He moved to the equipment rack, checking through her supplies, coolant tanks, field stabilizers, microreactor coils. You've got the materials here. We just need to rewire them into something portable. A thermal disruptor? Lyra asked, surprise flickering in her voice. It could work, he said, pulling a coil loose from the wall. Back home, we use similar rigs on cryogenic mining operations to melt through armor plating. Same principle. That's industrial equipment, she said. You're talking about weaponizing it. Marcus looked up, his expression calm and steady. We're already under siege. I'd call this survival, Ghost barked once as if in agreement. Lyra's gaze softened. Your species really doesn't hesitate, does it? Hesitation gets people killed, he said. Or in your case, an entire world. The truth in his tone hit harder than he intended, and she didn't reply. Instead, she moved beside him, her blue fingers brushing across the metal as she began recalibrating the coils with precise, practiced movements. Together, they worked in silence, the hum of the reactor mixing with the distant roar of the storm. The room's air shimmered faintly from the shifting temperatures as Marcus rerouted power conduits. Lyra's luminous skin reflected the glow, her expression focused but distant, as if she were keeping another thought buried beneath the surface. You said your people tampered with your own evolution, Marcus said after a while. Was it to fight them? The Korth? No, she said softly. It was to outlive ourselves. She kept her eyes on the console, voice barely above a whisper. We thought we could perfect life, remove fear, pain, anger, the so-called primitive emotions. They were inefficient, but when we did, we lost something essential. We became sterile to change, unable to evolve. So you stripped away the parts that made you fight, Marcus said. Exactly, Lyra replied. And when the Korth came, we could not adapt fast enough. We still can't. That's why I needed you. You carry what we lost. He glanced at her, the pieces clicking into place. Emotion, he said quietly. Instinct. The will to survive. And the courage to act despite fear, she said, her silver eyes meeting his. That is what my people called the primal spark. It is absent in us, but abundant in you. Marcus tightened the coil with a grim smile. Then maybe you should have asked for a soldier sooner. The console flickered again, this time showing multiple heat signatures closing in on the perimeter. 3 more, Lyra said, her voice sharp now. They're converging from the ridge. Then we need to test our new toy fast. Marcus connected the final wire, a faint arc of energy sparking between his gloves. All right, that should do it. The discharge will overload their sensory clusters for about 20 seconds. After that, they'll adapt 20 seconds, Lyra repeated. That's not much. It's enough if you know how to use it. He hefted the makeshift weapon, a cobbled-together cylinder with cooling vents in a trigger assembly welded from a plasma cutter. Ghost whined softly, sensing the tension in the air. Marcus crouched and scratched behind the dog's ears. Stay with her, he said. If I'm not back in 10, seal the station and run the reactor on overload. That'll fry the bastards before they breach. You can't go out there alone, Lyra protested, stepping forward. I don't have a choice. You need to keep this place intact. It's the only thing keeping us alive. Her hand caught his arm, the warmth of her skin radiating through his sleeve. Marcus, she said softly, her voice slipping between command and plea. The bond between us, it links more than our biology. If you die out there, I feel it. He paused, eyes meeting hers. Then I'll try not to make it hurt. Before she could answer, he sealed his helmet and cycled the airlock. The door opened to a wall of white fury, wind screaming against the hull. The cold should have bitten through his armor, but it didn't. She was right, the bond had changed him. His blood ran warmer now, his breath steady even as the storm clawed at him. He stepped into the blizzard, weapon slung across his shoulder, boots crunching through knee-deep snow. The horizon was a blur, shapes shifting in and out of focus. Then one moved with purpose, a massive black form crouching low before lunging forward. Marcus dropped to a knee, braced the weapon, and fired. A shockwave of superheated vapor burst outward, followed by a freezing pulse that cracked the air. The creature shrieked, a piercing sound that vibrated through his skull and collapsed into the snow, its carapace steaming and fracturing. He barely had time to breathe before 2 more shapes emerged from the storm. They were faster this time, learning already. Marcus triggered the weapon again, sweeping it across the field. The air split with alternating waves of heat and cold, the snow boiling then freezing midair. One Korth dropped instantly, the other pushed through, its claws slicing through the vapor trail. It slammed into him, sending him sprawling into the snow. The weapon skidded several meters away. The creature's weight was crushing, its breath a fetid stench of ozone and decay. Marcus reached for his sidearm, firing point-blank into the beast's neck. The plasma rounds melted into its hide uselessly. The Korth screeched, raising a limb to strike. A streak of blue light cut through the storm, slamming into the creature's side. Lyra stood on the ridge above, her arm extended, a glowing sphere in her palm. I told you not to go alone, she shouted through the wind. The sphere pulsed again, releasing a burst of energy that struck the creature square in the chest. It convulsed and fell back, its armor cracking like glass. Marcus pushed himself up, breathing hard. You call that staying inside? You humans and your orders, she said, moving to his side. You never listen either. Together they turned toward the ridge. More shadows were forming, dozens this time, weaving through the snow like living smoke. We can't fight all of them, Marcus said. No, Lyra replied, but we can make them hesitate. She pressed a small device into his palm. A phase detonator. It will destabilize the terrain for several hundred meters and bring down half the ridge, he said. Exactly. You're insane, he muttered. So are you, she said, and there was a strange, fierce smile on her face. The bond between them thrummed like a pulse of shared adrenaline. Without another word, Marcus armed the detonator, the device vibrating in his hand. Run, he said, grabbing her arm. They sprinted across the ice as the ridge behind them began to quake. The explosion tore through the blizzard, a rolling wave of blue fire that shattered the ground. The nearest Korth vanished into the collapsing snow, their shrieks cut short by the roar of falling ice. Marcus and Lyra dove behind a jagged outcrop as the shockwave passed over them, the air glowing with static. When the storm settled, silence fell again. Heavy, unnatural. Lyra lifted her head slowly. You're bleeding, she said, seeing a dark line of red seeping through a tear in his armor. Marcus wiped at it, grimacing. Just a scratch. You forget I can feel it, she said quietly. He looked at her, snow melting on her luminous skin, and realized she was trembling, not from cold, but from the same adrenaline still rushing through his veins. Then let's make sure it's worth feeling, he said, standing. The storm had begun to thin, revealing the horizon at last. Through the blowing snow, faint shapes moved in retreat, the surviving Korth scattering into the distance. For now, they had bought time. Lyra rose beside him, the faint glow of the detonator's aftermath reflected in her eyes. They'll be back, she said. Then we'll be ready next time, Marcus replied. His voice was calm, but there was a fire behind it, a spark she recognized instantly, the same primal defiance her species had lost long ago. The bond between them pulsed again, warm and alive, a reminder that something ancient had been reignited on this frozen world. They returned to the station in silence, snow crunching under their boots as the sky pulsed faintly with residual energy from the explosion. Marcus walked ahead, weapon lowered but ready, scanning the horizon while Lyra followed close behind, the light from her skin illuminating faint trails of vapor that swirled through the air. Ghost trotted beside them, occasionally glancing back toward the ridge where the detonation had left a jagged scar across the white expanse. Inside, the warmth returned instantly. Lyra moved to the console, hands trembling slightly as she recalibrated the systems. Marcus watched her, noting the way fatigue clung to her movements despite the precision of her work. You pushed too hard out there, he said. She didn't look up. So did you. I'm trained for that. So am I, she said, but her tone lacked conviction. He crossed the room and placed a hand on her shoulder. The heat between them pulsed stronger now, not just from proximity, but from the bond that tied them together. Her skin shimmered faintly under his touch. You're burning up, he said. Your body's not meant to handle adrenaline spikes like that, is it? She shook her head. Our kind learned to suppress such responses centuries ago, but your influence, our link, changes that. You're adapting, Marcus said, almost to himself. No, she corrected softly. I'm evolving. Her gaze lifted to meet his, and something electric passed between them, an awareness deeper than words. He stepped back slightly, clearing his throat. We need to regroup. The Korth know where you are now. They'll come in greater numbers. Then we strengthen the defenses, she said, moving toward the storage compartment. She opened a panel to reveal rows of crystalline devices glowing with soft blue light. These are phase amplifiers, she explained. I designed them to manipulate the storm's magnetic fields. If we connect them to the outpost's emitter array, we can expand the shield radius tenfold. And you never used them before? Marcus asked. Their activation draws power from the reactor directly. Without external stabilizers, the overload would kill me, she said matter-of-factly. But now, with us, the link distributes the energy between our bodies. It might be enough. He frowned. Might? Certainty is a luxury for extinct species, she said dryly, a flicker of humor ghosting across her features. Marcus grabbed a set of tools from the rack. All right then. Tell me where to start. They worked for hours, weaving conduits through the walls, linking power relays to the amplifiers, syncing the frequencies of human and Valari tech. Lyra's world had been built around cold precision, flawless equations, and predictable reactions. Marcus operated on instinct, intuition sharpened by survival. Where she calculated, he adjusted by feel, tightening bolts and rerouting cables until the circuits thrummed with life. At one point, she stopped and just watched him. "Your kind builds differently," she said quietly. "You adapt as you go. It's chaotic." "That's one word for it," he said, "but chaos keeps us alive." "It also destroys," she countered. "Every civilization that reaches beyond its design faces the same choice: preserve order or embrace evolution." "And you chose order," Marcus said. "We thought we were choosing peace." Her voice faltered. He didn't press her, but she continued anyway, her words slower now. "When the Korth began hunting us, we realized what peace had cost. We had no anger left to fight with, no passion to service all. We just faded." "Not all of you," he said. "You're still here." She met his gaze. "For now." When the last connection was complete, the amplifiers pulsed to life. The floor vibrated with a deep harmonic hum, and blue light rippled through the walls like veins awakening after centuries of dormancy. Lyra touched the console, her expression a mix of awe and fear. "It's working," she whispered. The external monitor displayed the storm outside, now bending unnaturally around the station, its wind patterns spiraling in perfect symmetry. "You've just turned the planet's atmosphere into a defense grid," Marcus said, astonished. "More than that," Lyra said softly. "We're tapping into the planet's pulse. Archivale isn't dead, it's dormant. The storms are its heartbeat, and now it's listening to us." Marcus stared at the shifting patterns of the storm. It was beautiful in a way he couldn't describe. Vast, terrible, and alive. He turned back to her. "Then we make sure it beats in our favor." She smiled faintly. "For a human, you sound almost Velari." "Don't insult me like that," he said, and she laughed. A quiet sound, unfamiliar but genuine. Ghost lifted his head from the corner, ears twitching at the noise. The moment passed quickly. The console emitted a sharp tone, and Lyra's smile vanished. She turned toward the screen. "They're regrouping," she said. The monitor displayed dozens of red signatures moving across the terrain, far more than before. "How long until they reach us?" Marcus asked. "Less than 2 hours." He checked his rifle and the improvised disruptor. "We'll hold them at the perimeter." Lyra hesitated. "Marcus, the energy readings, they're changing. The Korth aren't just moving, they're adapting. They've learned to mask their thermal output." He swore under his breath. "They're learning faster than we can build." "That is why they always win," she said, frustration breaking through her calm. "They evolve faster than thought itself. Even the storms couldn't stop them." Marcus leaned on the console, eyes narrowing. "Then we stop thinking like them." She looked at him, confused. "Meaning?" "You said they feed on energy signatures," he said. "What happens if we give them too much? Overload their senses until they burn out from the inside?" Lyra blinked. "That would require a constant power source, something enormous." Marcus nodded toward the glowing amplifiers. "We already have one." She went still, realizing what he meant. "If we do that, the feedback could destroy the station. And us, or it wipes them out for good," Marcus said. "You told me your people stopped taking risks centuries ago. Maybe it's time to start again." Lyra studied him, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "You speak like someone who has already made peace with dying." "I made peace with that the day I signed up for the Corps," he said quietly. "But I don't plan on it being today." She turned back to the console, hands steady once more. "Then we make it work. But we'll need to sink deeper. Our bond must channel the surge or it will tear us apart." "We've come this far," Marcus said, stepping closer. "What's one more connection?" Lyra glanced at him, the glow of the amplifiers painting her blue skin in soft, shifting light. "You say that as if you understand what it means." "Maybe I don't," he said, "but I trust you." The words hung between them. Trust, foreign to her species, instinctive to his. She nodded slowly. "Then we begin when the storm reaches peak intensity. Once the grid is at full power, there will be no turning back." He smiled faintly. "There never is." Outside, the wind began to rise again, the planet's heartbeat quickening. Within the station, two figures prepared for a battle neither species had ever survived, bound by instinct, by evolution, and by something dangerously close to faith. The storm intensified until the entire horizon pulsed with light, streaks of electric blue weaving through the clouds like veins of fire. The amplifiers thrummed under the pressure, their glow synchronizing with the beat of the planet's magnetic heart. Marcus stood near the viewport, visor off, sweat beading on his forehead from the rising heat. The air itself felt alive, charged, humming with anticipation. Lyra moved between consoles, her every motion fluid and precise, adjusting calculations faster than the system could process. "The Korth will reach visual range soon," she said. "They're drawn to the energy field." "Good," Marcus replied. "Let them come." He checked the rifle again, even though he knew it wouldn't matter against creatures that devoured energy. His real weapon was now the storm itself. Lyra stopped beside him, her face illuminated by the swirling lights outside. "When we activate the feedback loop, the surge will run through both of us," she said. "It will hurt." "I've had worse," Marcus said. "No," she said softly. "You haven't." For a moment, the wind fell away, replaced by a stillness that felt almost sacred. Lyra reached up and touched his cheek. Her fingers were hot, too hot, but he didn't flinch. "You've changed since you arrived," she said. "You were cautious, distant. Now you're alive." "You gave me a reason to be," he said. She studied him with something between wonder and sorrow. "Our bond runs deeper than I anticipated. When this is over, we'll deal with that when it comes," he interrupted gently. "Right now, we focus." The external sensors flared red. Through the white wall of snow, movement emerged. Hundreds of shapes, dark and low to the ground, their forms bending in unnatural rhythm. The Korth advanced in silence, eyes burning like embers. The ground vibrated with their approach. Ghost barked once, sharp and warning. "They're splitting into flanks," Marcus observed. "They're learning from the last fight." "Then we adapt faster," Lyra said, fingers flying across the control surface. The amplifiers roared to life, sending ripples of blue lightning across the stormfront. The creatures hesitated for a brief instant, as if sensing the trap, then charged. "Now," she said. Marcus slammed his hand on the release. The feedback loop engaged, and the world exploded in light. A shockwave of energy rippled outward, distorting the air, tearing through the snow. The Korth screeched in unison, their bodies convulsing as the amplified frequencies overloaded their sensory systems. The station shook violently, the lights flickering. Marcus felt it hit him at the same time, the surge racing through his veins like liquid fire. His muscles locked, vision blurring as pain bloomed across his body. He could feel Lyra too, and through the bond, her screams silent but echoing inside his skull. Their shared pain became a bridge of light, connecting thought and instinct. The feedback burned hotter, climbing beyond the limits of what any system should survive. Alarms screamed through the room, but Marcus barely heard them. He felt everything, the pull of gravity, the pulse of the storm, Lyra's heartbeat syncing with his own. "It's working," she gasped. "Keep it steady." "I'm trying," he growled through clenched teeth. The amplifiers began to crack, blue lightning spilling from the seams. Outside, the Korth writhed, collapsing in waves, their bodies turning to glass under the torrent of unstable energy. The air shimmered with heat and ozone. Marcus staggered, catching himself against the console. His vision split between reality and something else, images that weren't his own. He saw Lyra's world as it once was, vast oceans of silver water, towers of light, her people radiant and unscarred by fear. Then he saw their downfall, the sterilized calm, the apathy, the surrender, the loss of everything that made them burn. His mind snapped back to the present as a deafening crack tore through the outpost. One of the amplifiers had ruptured, spilling a surge of plasma across the floor. Lyra stumbled but caught herself. "We can't sustain it much longer," she shouted. "If we shut it down now, they'll recover," Marcus said. "Then we don't shut it down," she replied, voice trembling. "We ride it until the last one falls." He looked at her, her skin glowing white-hot now, veins of light tracing her features like molten metal. "You won't survive that." "Neither will they." Marcus grabbed her arm, forcing her to face him. "I didn't come all this way to watch you die trying to save a world that forgot how to live." Her silver eyes met his, fierce and desperate. "You don't understand. This is my purpose. Then make it ours, he said. We finish this together. For a heartbeat, the storm outside seemed to listen. Lyra's expression softened, and she nodded once. Together, then. They linked hands, and the feedback loop roared anew. The energy that had been tearing them apart now aligned, harmonized, channeled through the bond between them. The light shifted, no longer chaotic but rhythmic, pulsing with the cadence of two hearts beating in unison. Marcus could feel the storm responding, reshaping itself. Lightning curved into spirals, focusing into a vast vortex that descended upon the Korth like divine judgment. The creatures disintegrated in flashes of blue flame, their shrieks swallowed by the wind. The station shuddered again, but this time the vibrations were steady, controlled. The amplifier stabilized under the synchronized resonance. The temperature dropped sharply, frost spreading across the floor. The light dimmed until only the faint glow of the storm remained. Marcus exhaled, knees weak, his hand still gripping Lyra's. She was trembling, her skin pale but still alight with residual energy. "It's done," she whispered. "They're gone." He looked at the monitors. No movement, no heat signatures, nothing but silence beyond the storm. "You did it," he said. "We did," she corrected. Her legs gave way, and he caught her before she fell. She was hot to the touch, almost feverish. "Your temperature's off the charts," he said, laying her down gently near the console. "The energy, it's rewriting my structure," she murmured. "Your DNA, it's merging deeper than anticipated." He frowned. "Is that bad?" "It's unpredictable." Her voice trembled. "I feel everything." She looked up at him, her pupils dilated, light flickering through her irises. "Every heartbeat, every breath. It's overwhelming." "Then focus on mine," Marcus said. He placed her hand over his chest, one heartbeat at a time. She closed her eyes, matching his rhythm. Slowly, her breathing steadied. Outside, the storm had calmed to a whisper, faint auroras painting the sky. For the first time since his arrival, the world seemed almost peaceful. Marcus leaned against the wall, exhausted but alert. Ghost rested at his feet, ears twitching at the distant echo of thunder. Lyra stirred after a while, her voice barely audible. "The Korth are gone, but others will come. The signal we've created will draw attention, from the Alliance, from anyone watching." "Let them come," Marcus said. "We've got a story worth fighting for." Lyra managed a small smile. "Humans," she whispered. "You always turn a survival into defiance. It's what we do best." He reached for her, helping her sit up. The stormlight danced across their faces, their shared exhaustion fading into something quieter. Between them, the air hummed, not with danger this time, but with connection. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, they weren't alone in it. The following day, the storm had thinned into a pale haze, streaks of sunlight breaking through the clouds for the first time since Marcus had crashed on Arcavel. The world beyond the viewport looked transformed, still frozen, still harsh, but quieter now, as if the planet itself were resting after centuries of rage. Inside the outpost, the hum of the amplifiers had softened to a steady rhythm. The air was calm, faintly warm. Marcus sat near the main console, repairing the final power relay, while Gostus dozed nearby. Lyra lay on a padded berth close to the reactor, her breathing slow but steady, her blue skin faintly illuminated by the soft light that pulsed beneath its surface. The storm's energy had fused into her biology permanently. She was something new now, part Valari, part human. When she stirred, Marcus looked up immediately. "You're awake," he said, setting his tools aside. "How do you feel?" "Different," she murmured, her voice stronger than before. "Everything feels clearer, sharper. The bond hasn't faded, it's stronger than ever." She sat up slowly, her silver blue eyes reflecting the room's glow. "The Korth are gone," she said softly, "and so is the interference field." "The signal will reach the Alliance by now," Marcus nodded, already knowing what that meant. "They'll come," he said, "scavengers, patrols, maybe even a research team. They'll want to know what happened here. They'll want to know about you," she said, "and about us." He met her gaze, unflinching. "Let them ask. We'll tell them the truth." Lyra smiled faintly. "The truth has never mattered much to the Alliance." "Then we'll make it matter," he said. He stood, crossing to the viewport. The light outside shimmered over the ice, the wreckage of his ship still visible in the distance. "You know," he said quietly, "I thought I'd die out there. Frozen, forgotten. But somehow that crash was the best thing that ever happened to me." "Because it brought you here?" she asked. "Because it reminded me that survival doesn't mean being alone," he said. She rose and moved to stand beside him, her presence radiant with quiet strength. The silence between them was filled with the hum of the storm beyond, the faint tremor of power still flowing through the planet's veins. "What happens now?" she asked. "We rebuild," Marcus said. "Your people, my people. Maybe both. The Alliance won't understand what we've done here. Not at first. But they'll see the results." Lyra turned to look at him. "And you? When they arrive, they'll want to take you back." He looked out at the horizon where the faint aurora shimmered across the thinning clouds. "I've spent my whole life following orders," he said, "fighting wars I didn't believe in. Maybe it's time I fought for something that actually matters." Her expression softened. "Then you'll stay? If you'll have me," he said. Lyra's smile deepened. "You already belong here," she said simply. The words struck him harder than any battle ever had. He reached for her hand, and when their fingers touched, the bond flared gently, a pulse of warmth that rippled through the air, through the walls, through the planet itself. "Your heartbeat," she said softly. "I can still feel it." "Guess you're stuck with it," he replied, his voice quiet but steady. They stood together, watching the light grow stronger on the horizon. After a long silence, Lyra spoke again. "The Valari will change because of this," she said. "Our evolution has already begun. The traits I've inherited from you, resilience, instinct, emotion, they'll become part of every generation that follows. And you, Marcus Hale, will be the reason my species survives." "Not just me," he said. "We did this together. Both of us." She leaned against him, her warmth spreading through the cold air. "Then both of our names will be remembered." "If history gets it right," he said, smiling faintly. "It rarely does." Lyra turned her gaze to the clouds, her tone quiet but full of certainty. "It will this time." Outside, the storm began to clear completely, sunlight spilling across the plains in blinding gold. The outpost shimmered under the light, surrounded by the soft hum of newly stabilized energy. For the first time in centuries, the planet felt alive. Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of survival give way to something lighter. "We should start collecting data," he said. "If the Alliance's scanners pick this up, we'll need evidence. Proof that your species isn't a threat. Or proof that humans still know how to create," she said. He looked at her and found her already watching him. "You know," he said after a moment, "when you first opened that door and said, 'Stay close, it's warmer inside,' I didn't realize how literal you were." She laughed softly, a sound that filled the small room with warmth. "And now?" "Now," he said, brushing his thumb against her cheek. "I'm glad I listened." Ghost stirred nearby, raising his head and letting out a quiet chuff as if agreeing. Lyra smiled and knelt to stroke the dog's fur, her touch gentle. "He likes me now," she said. "He always did," Marcus said. "He just wanted to make sure I noticed first." She stood again, her expression thoughtful. "When the Alliance arrives, they'll take samples, measurements, maybe even question our bond. They'll see it as contamination. Then we'll show them its evolution," Marcus said. "The future doesn't belong to those who hide behind rules, it belongs to those who change." Spoken like a human, she said, her tone teasing. "Or maybe just someone who's tired of surviving without living." She reached for him, her hand resting over his heart once more. "Then live," she whispered. The light from the storm refracted across the glass, casting patterns of blue and gold across their faces. Outside, the wind had softened to a whisper, carrying with it the faintest trace of warmth. Archivale was no longer silent. Its storms had been tamed, its pulse steady and alive. And within the small outpost where a human soldier had once sought shelter from death, something greater had begun. A union of species, of purpose, of spirit. Marcus looked out at the horizon one last time before turning back to her. "Lyra," he said quietly. "What?" "Next time," he said, his voice low but certain, "you can crash my ship on purpose." She laughed, and for the first time, It sounded like home. The storm outside faded completely, leaving only light.